Send in the red shirts.
It's Captain Q reporting for duty. As you can see, I'm out of uniform. That's because I was sent away on a stealth mission in Nanuet, New York. I mean, if I'm being honest, I'm on a video shoot, and I got to be up tomorrow at 7 a.m. But I had to do a captain's log because this report comes in late. The last episode of Star Trek Discovery aired last Sunday. So rather than try to structure this, I just rewatched the episode because I like to watch it twice, just to make sure I get all of the details proper. And even then, I sometimes mess up. Even the captain is human and flawed. I'm not a Vulcan, so, cut me some slack. So I'm just going to go through my notes in no particular order. I guess Starfleet hairstyle regulations were a lot more relaxed 10 years before Kirk and Spock, because I'm looking at Owosakun, whose hair is dope, no doubt. But my man at the transporter chief who was on duty at the beginning of this episode, come on now. I mean, I got nothing against it, but it seemed like hairstyles would be a little shorter serving on a starship. What's up with my man Saru's walk? He reminds me of a Fat Albert character. I can't remember the name of the character, but something about that swagger. How do you guys feel about how these Starfleet officers wield their phasers? I mean, they're more like NYPD Blue, the way they hold their phasers. I guess it just adds to the kind of reality of the show, the realism, the grittiness, because I'm still kind of used to the one-handed phaser grip. Admiral Cornwell says to an emperor, "Make yourself at home." This woman's a fascist. Make yourself at home? If I were running that starship, both Ash and Emperor Giorgio will be confined to quarters. What was up with the corny mess hall Brady Bunch scene where all of the crew gathers around Ash and, it's like, "We'll come eat with you"? I mean, I felt like I was watching an episode of The Breakfast Club, not Star Trek. And here's a complicated note that I have here. I wrote down that I'm not sure how I felt about Cornwell playing such a large part with this crew. What do I mean by that? Well, on the original series, TNG, Voyager, DS9, I'm scanning my memory banks, and it seems like most of the time when the ship had a huge problem or a catastrophic conflict like Discovery's undergoing now, it was Kirk, Picard, Janeway, or Cisco, or maybe Kira. They were still in charge. The writers wrote it where they were still the central focus of the ship. Here we've shown Saru is capable of command. At least he has that potential. We saw that in the last episode, I believe. So I'm not really sure how I like the fact that they wrote Cornwell being the central focus of the ship on this episode, that she's in command. Now, clearly, she's very good. I think she would make a great captain. And it makes sense in terms of rank. She's the ranking officer on the ship. I guess there's nowhere else for her to serve because apparently the Federation has been decimated by the Klingons. So she's on Discovery. Fine. That's how the writers wrote it. And we did see this happen in Star Trek The Motion Picture. Kirk took over Decker's command of the Enterprise. He was an admiral. Decker was the captain. So it was Kirk's prerogative to assume command. So it works in terms of the rank system in Starfleet, which is very similar to military ranking. However, despite all that, I want to see a character that I've invested in for these last, 12 or 13 episodes. I want to see one of these characters I've invested in step up to the captain's chair. I'm like, where does this Cornwell get off coming into this starship when I've only seen her in 3 or 4 episodes? I mean, she's dope. I like her, but I'd rather have seen Saru step in to command. Now that's just an emotional response. The way they wrote it, it makes sense from a realistic point of view. But again, from an audience point of view, from my perspective, she didn't really earn that right from a storytelling perspective and from what I've been given. There's so many characters I wanted to see Saru or maybe even Mike. I don't know. But all that gets upended when we get to the conclusion. We're not there yet, but it all gets upended when we get to that point. That makes me think of another issue with Cornwell. I don't know if you guys listened to the podcast where we had Devette C from Black Girl Nerd as a special guest. She had some strong feelings about a scene that took place. I think it was the Letha episode where Cornwell hooks up with Lorca. She felt, I understand where she's coming from. She felt that it didn't do the Cornwell character any good, showing her being able to be manipulated by Lorca into a sexual tryst. She had an issue with that, and I understand that. And it seems like they do her a disservice here as well when they warp to Starbase 1 and they see the Klingon crest of the House of Dagor painted on the side of the starbase. And she pauses and she's like stunned. And Saru has to step up and say, Detmer, get us out of here, maximum warp. And I'm curious what Miss C thought about that. I don't mean to put her on on the spot, but I think she had a valid point about how they treated Cornwell prior. I wonder if this is another kind of slap in the face. Maybe that's a little bit too strong, but she doesn't strike me as the type of character. We saw her injured and in the Klingon sarcophagus ship, and she was putting work on Klingons. So it just didn't seem, it seemed out of character that she would have so much pause in that scene. It seems like she will be strong enough of will to collect her thoughts and give Discovery the order. Saru says, Discovery's waiting for your orders, Admiral. So I don't know. That was a little funny style. I'd be curious to see what Miss C thinks about that and what you think about that. So there's one moment in this episode where I thought the writing was kind of bad. And there's one scene which I'm going to talk about now where I thought the plotting was bad. And that was when Stamets tells the Discovery to chart a course for the Veda system, I think it was, where they can grow spores. So we saw previously that, I forget what episode it was, but Stamets runs to the mycelial network bay or wherever they're storing the spores, and they're all dead. And there's this look of dread on his face. And I'm trying to think, well, wait a minute. Why? There was no consequence to that, because in this episode, all they do is fly to a planet, launch some drones, and grow their own spores. So why was it presented as an issue that they had used all their spores to make the jump back from the mirror universe, if they could do that all along? That's called poor plotting. Unless I missed something, that's terrible plotting. And now we come to the scene that I just thought was poorly written, and that was the scene, it's the second time it's happened, the scene between Ash and Mike. So full of melodrama, so overwrought, so full of dialogue that no one in that circumstance would use. No one talks like that when they're breaking up with someone. Oh, God. First off, I don't find that there's any chemistry between these two actors together. Like I said, I think Sonequa is doing a great job. Shazad, he's killing it because he's playing two roles, one under tons of makeup and the other he's playing Ash Tyler, and that character has some depth. It's three-dimensional. But together, they just don't have any chemistry. I'm not convinced at all why they would ever be in love with each other. It just doesn't ring true to me. So then they have this bad dialogue and this really dramatic scene. And by the way, Ash, make a mental note. When you're trying to get your girl back, don't bring up her dead parents. Fam, what were you thinking? Now, I'm going to give you another note. After you said that about Mike was trying to run away because she fell in love with a Klingon and it was Klingons that killed her parents, that look she gave you, that's a black woman's way of saying, if I weren't under control, I'd be cutting you right now. I'm sure social mores and, values might evolve and change when we get to the 23rd century. But I think no matter what time frame it is, that look that Mike gave Ash still means, no, this didn't say that. I think another problem I have with this episode is that just a lot of bad decisions on display here. Giving Ash free reign of the ship, you don't know that he's still not compromised. You have no evidence of that. I mean, I wouldn't trust any of the scans from the replacement doctor because the original doctor was killed by this guy. That's a first clue right there. Also, it was a great reveal. It was great seeing the esteemed Michelle Yeoh walk back onto that bridge. But is that really a good idea? She's a fascist, for God's sake, and you're giving her command of a starship that can jump anywhere it wants to at a moment's notice and wreak havoc. Now, maybe I'm jumping the gun. Looking at the previews for next week, which is also the season finale, it looks like there's going to be a conflict between Mike and Admiral Cornwell, where Cornwell may start to stray from Starfleet principles, and maybe that's what we're seeing when she allows Georgiou to take over the bridge. Mirror Universe Georgiou, that is. She allows Mirror Universe Georgiou to take over the bridge. But, okay. And I understand that that's where they're going because that's the writing, that's the plotting that the writers are putting out there. It still doesn't make for that strategy. I mean, what is Cornwell thinking? Just want to sum up. I wasn't really blown away with this episode. I think anyone would agree with me that this episode was pretty much set up in exposition for the finale. I hope the finale runs a little longer, maybe, 90 minutes, maybe a full 60 minutes or 75 minutes. But this episode was a bit of a letdown, with the exception of the reveal at the end, which I still had issues with. It was cool seeing Michelle Yeoh. And I noticed that she was listed as a special guest star, so I don't know if that means she's going to be staying. I would think her name would have been just featured in the credits as a straight player, as opposed to a special guest star if she wouldn't be staying. But I'm hoping for the best. Maybe she will, she'll change her ways from Emperor to becoming Starfleet, which will still be corny, but you know what? I just want Michelle Yeoh on the show. But yeah, not the best episode for me. It wasn't bad. It wasn't as bad as Letha, and there was one other episode I didn't like that much. But again, not much happens. It's all set up. Some scenes with some bad writing. I thought one major plot hole with the spores being grown. I was a little disappointed that Saru didn't get to step up in this episode because we saw him step to the plate in a major way last episode, and now he's been relegated. Well, not really to the background, but like I said, Cornwell's taken over. I guess it's okay. Like I said, she's a great character. She has that authority. She has that command, but I don't know her as well as I know Saru. So I was a little disappointed in that. And it just felt like this episode, another series that I watched, Walking Dead, it's guilty of doing this quite a bit, where it bides its time until it gets to a major plot event. And I personally think this whole episode was just built around the reveal of Emperor Georgiou masquerading as Prime Universe Georgiou. But all right, next week it's the last episode. I'm gonna tell CBS All Access to kick rocks after that. But it looks like it's going to be a hot one. It looks like there's to go to a strip club or something like that. Looks like Michelle Yeoh's getting a little naked. I don't know. It looked a little like, okay, why are we seeing this kind of stuff in the season finale? I want to see some all-out fighting and some battling. That's what I want to see. And it looks like we're going to get some of that. But I just hope they end it with a bang, because we're not going to, my understanding is that we're not going to get any more Star Trek and Star Trek Discovery until 2019. Maybe we're going to get some at the end of this year, but that's still too long to go without Star Trek. All right, guys, that's it for this review. Let me know what you think. It's kind of a brief review, but like I said, episode didn't blow me away, so I didn't have that much to say, but let me know what you think. Leave comments below. I will see you next week for the season finale.